All right, thanks again, and we'll move right along. Richard Kelly is NSGIC's liaison to NENA, and he is going to give us a presentation in 15 minutes. Really, Richard Kelly in 15 minutes. Next Gen 911 and data standards. So buckle your seatbelt because the Kelly train is leaving the station.
Great. Well, that's exciting. All right. Can y'all see me okay and see my desktop?
Yes, we
Hopefully.
can.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I'm glad to be able to go through this with you. If you can see the starting screen, what I wanted to do is provide on behalf of NENA an update on some of the key GIS guidance documentation that's going to be coming to you in the near future. I want to reiterate from the beginning, and I'll mention again at the end, you have an opportunity as representation at the states and even the commercial sector side to look at this documentation, provide your input back to the National Emergency Number Association so we get as wide a swath of input, opinion, and knowledge as possible before these go into main circulation. The first thing I wanted to remind you of the three documents we're going to get into is the I3 architecture standard. Slide's a little wordy because I wanted you guys to have something you could take away that would help you go back and reference this when this comes out for public review. The I3 architecture document has been completed and is now at version 3. It's a little over 670 pages, but in that document, I've already done the scouting for you. You don't have to be scared of the length of it. There are several sections dealing with GIS data use in next generation 911. Spatial interface, which is a GIS data server or aggregation source for in the GIS parlance. Discrepancy reporting for all of us dealing with GIS data, that would be problems with routing calls based off of GIS data that's available. The emergency call routing function and the LVF, those applications are provisioned with GIS data from local sources or their proxies, so they can perform the duty that we use today with tabular telephone company databases. Those are being phased out in favor of GIS data. So if you like Google Maps or don't like Google Maps, think of that as the future for how 911 calls get to the 911 centers based off the location provided to a map database. So that's exciting. The MSAT conversion service is going to try to do all kinds of conversions between what the incoming location is, be it a wireless geodetic with an X and Y and then later on a Z, or if it's a landline, a civic type location like 105 Main Street. So we'll have to translate through all the permutations and variations. That's what the MSAT conversion service does, and it'll be stocked with GIS data. Geocode service, just as it sounds, we're all used to geocoders. Well, there's a geocoding service necessary in some aspects of next generation 911. And as we all know from Esri geocoders, there's a lot of subtlety in what you have that's understood by these geocoders as far as street naming conventions, paths, dashes, things like that. Forest Guide, think of that as a national level GIS server that routes calls to other smaller servers for states or regions. It's basically a telephone guide, if you will, for all the servers dealing with GIS data in the United States. The National Emergency Number Association has an organization now that's standing that up on behalf of them. The Mapping Data Service, it's the big bad boy. This is NENA's version of a Google Map. What this is going to be, and that's why I was interested in listening to NAD and other opportunities that the federal agencies and state agencies are standing up, is the Mapping Data Service is a required element that provides an extract of a map, basically a bounding square based around a location that's provided to it, and or the data, not just a raster image snippet, but also the data itself can be delivered anywhere 24 hours a day to any PSAP in the nation. Then of course we have a GIS data layers registry now in that document, which stipulates all the layers were recognized within next generation 911 for GIS. It's pretty extensive. You might want to look at that. And then Appendix B stipulates how a lot of this information is going to be understood. The first major document outside of the I3, which is specific to GIS, is a standard for NG9-1-1 GIS Data Model. We talked about this before. Cheryl Benjamin is one of the co-chairs with that work group, as are some of the other folks here. The group and some of us that are on, it's an extensive piece of work. I know I started the data model back in 2010. In 2018, the first version was released. This second version is going to incorporate a number of augmentations and updates. It's going to update the required layer structure schema for road center lines, the site structure address points, which includes landmark naming, service boundaries, which now is the overarching term for PSAP boundaries, fire, law, EMS, federal responders, volunteer zones, any kind of boundary where it revolves a responder that's determined by the location of the call, and that information sent to 911 Center. Those boundary layers are now fully defined in the database schema that's provided in the data model. You also have the provisioning boundaries. That's important. That means if you provide any aspect of data that's used in the next generation of core services, such as the emergency call routing function, then you'll need a provisioning boundary that stipulates who you are and where it's coming from. The document, the new standard, the version 2, and I've got on all these slides at the top, you'll see a NENA.STA-006.2, 2020. We're hoping it's going to be 2022 when it gets out early. I don't think we're going to make it this year, but it's going to add additional information for Canada. So the NENA standards are not only for the United States, but its overarching North American goal is United States and Canada, and down the road incorporating other countries as well. The unique ID structure. We've all dealt with unique IDs and children of unique IDs as you make modifications and split features or duplicate them. There is now a rigorously defined unique ID structure in this document. I strongly urge everyone to take a look at that. Also, the data layers registry support. This goes back to the previous slide, I3, where we have a defined list of names that are understood, excuse me, for that purpose. So you're going to want to look at that. And again, understanding the structure and how this stuff works, all important to what we're going to be seeing, okay? The GIS Data Stewardship is the next major document I wanted to remind you of. And this stewardship is something I wished I'd had back in the late 90s when I started my GIS analyst role in public safety. This guidance document, which is now coming out in version 2. Version 1 had the PSAP boundaries, that's section 5.2 there. 4.1 at the top of the list of these grouped items, road center lines, as well as the response agency boundaries, 5.3. Those areas have now been provided in the document. They will be composed of a requirements section. This is the data model. This is what you need to do to build them, where you break lines, why, how they're represented, directions, all the things dealing with topology and geometry. It's also got the recommendations on what to do and do not based on experience from all over the country. We've had participants, quite a wide arrangement of participants from all over the country, and that's been great input from everyone. And then a phased approach, how you can not only build the data, most people have something, but how you augment, how you update it. What should you do first? So this comprehensive document, NENA INF 028.2-2021, that's going to be out for public review as well. So what we've talked about, the data model and the stewardship, those two are going to be out for public review. We're hoping that we're going to see it in the next few months for review, and I'll let you guys know when it's available. The next step after we get public review comments adjudicated and it's updated and adopted and released as version 2, we will work on version 3, and that will incorporate the site structure address points, which we currently only have an informational document on that myself and Cheryl Benjamin co-chaired back, way back in 2015. That information will be incorporated in the next iteration of the stewardship document. An excellent guide on how to build GIS data. The last thing we wanted to spend time on today is the big ticket item. And that's where NENA is going with 3D, elevation, vertical perspective, everything that goes with that. The FCC really set the scale of what we were trying to measure up to in coordination with the National Emergency Number Association, APCO, and the 4 commercial mobile radio service providers. The FCC issued a report back in 2014, 2015 timeframe where they stipulated we needed to have better vertical accuracy. And you could provide that through either a dispatchable location, which was something suitable for uniqueness of that location, particularly with vertical. Building 2, floor 5, suite 216, that data can't be pre-provisioned. So it's problematic at this point in time technologically for us to set up pre-provisioned sub-addressing. The FCC recognizes this. The wireless carriers have articulated these concerns at the FCC. So now, believe it or not, the emphasis is on Z-value. We already able to acquire Z-value through GPS systems. It's inaccurate right now. We know that NOAA's discussed their NAPGD 2022, their potential data that's coming out in the near future. That should help us achieve better accuracy, because the FCC's put a marker there. You'll see in the first bullet, in that third bunch there, 3 meters plus or minus 80% of the calls. So right now, if we're delivering 153 meters of elevation at a 911 center, doesn't mean much to the call taker for response. But if we can get it to 3 meters, the idea is plus or minus a floor. Now that's great. We can do something with that, but we need to have it accurate. So there's going to be some requirements for validating some other technology, testing and new approaches. It's a new area for us. There's a document, the NENA REQ 003.1-2021. It's a requirements document, different than a standard. No one has to, it's designed, requirements are designed to be a ubiquitous data source for new standards and informational documents. This one is fantastic. It's got a lot of information on location technology as we understand it today, how to operationalize vertical location information, which we euphemistically call 3D location, talking about implementation and standards, all the vagaries of dealing with this data as we understand it today. We have professionals from the industry and the wireless service providers and getting their technical input, as well as really some cutting edge information. It's heavily graphics laden, and be aware that there's going to be 3 terms all of you need to get comfortable with if you have anything to do with public safety in the future, where this concept comes into play, and that's the definitions of altitude, elevation, and height. They mean different things, and what we're concerned about in 911 is height above ellipsoid, otherwise known as altitude, okay? So we got the definitions there for you. We also have 4 different ways that vertical elevation is expressed, and it's important to keep these in mind. A provision address, an estimated address, coordinates, and someone telling you. The rest of this is just graphics. Frank, you've seen some of this before where we used to 2D maps where someone's located. We can do that with color coding on a map to see how high or how low they are relative to sea level. That's important with bridges over water sources. But IDing someone within a building where you're trying to get to the room or floor, we need to have something more than just a general sphere of where they are. We need to cross-relate it to a floor. All these documents are in the standard. You go look it up. We want to get it to where we box them into a room. And that's where we're going. So real exciting. You're going to eventually, the last couple of slides, you're going to get to where buildings, you're going to be able to differentiate through extruded polygons in real time because we got processor data that can support it, the heights of the buildings, the types of the buildings, where callers are located, nature of emergency. So what we want to do for visualization for 3D in that document, really the sky's the limit. And you're going to see a lot of commercial and technical people providing options, particularly when we talk about layouts and even dead spaces. Crawl spaces, elevator shafts, things, HVAC systems, things where people get trapped and need to get response to. So those are things coming your way. As we have these 3 new documents come out, again, the new data model V2, the stewardship V2, and the 3D GIS V1, we'll let you know so you guys can provide your input on it. Frank, was that fast enough?
That was fast enough. Way to go.